Wherever you are. I'm Harrison,
I'm Farhan.
and we are continuing our discussions around technology and innovation and all the human stuff that goes with that. So I would like to begin this discussion by throwing out a word that we don't all understand, and that is failure. So I'd like to spend, yeah, you're making the same smile that I expect to make as well. We're going to spend the next 20 or so minutes talking about failure. And I'll begin with a proposition, and that is that that there are some mindsets that say that trying is the first step towards failure. And I would counter with that by saying not trying is the last step towards failure. So having a really good understanding of what it means to fail is, I think, incredibly useful.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And so, yeah, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just keep on talking.
Okay. Well, I mean, please talk for a little bit, and then I can jump back in.
Yeah. So I think that's a wonderful. That's an interesting word, and like a word without context is useless, in my opinion. So you said several different things. I used the word. It's hard to talk about failure, and I agree. It is hard to talk about it, and so the first question that I would have in terms of moving towards even speaking about failure or any other word for that matter, we need to ask. So why is it so hard? And I'll ask the question, and then I'll throw an answer out that streams right out, and feel free to jump in. So well, maybe it's hard to talk about it because we don't have a context for it. So context to me is about connectedness. It's it means that it's a part of something. That's why we're having difficulty. Let's just throw that out as a conjecture of types, and say that if it's a part of something, then what is it a part of? And then we don't have to be right. Just throw it out there, and let's see if it propels us in some kind of a conversation. Catapults us in. So go for it.
I think that part of the reason it's difficult to talk about is that when you look at people's resumes, or when they tell their story, it is a string of unfettered successes, and that's how most people like to tell their story. And that's okay. That's how we are incentivized in our culture to tell our story. But what it does is it gives you the sense, if you're struggling, that, oh, well, winners don't struggle. Winners don't ever lose. Winners just have this string of winning. They wake up and snap their fingers and everything magically happens for them. And I think that we would be much better off and much more honest with ourselves, and also with the people who are coming up behind us, if we just said, hey, not everything I do works out the first or 10th try. And I think that the antidote to failure is not winning. The antidote to failure is resilience.
I like it. Yeah. I actually don't like the word failure, period. I just don't like it, and it's not because I'm averse to failure, whatever it's trying to capture or point towards, but it doesn't have a good. It's been stigmatized. It's been made more than what it is, in my opinion. It's just a part of life, as you said earlier on. So it's and going back to using maybe 2 cents words is the part of a continuum. It's part of something else, a process, a cycle, whatever it is. It's normal. If you're, I can tell you that when I was a young kid, I discovered my legs and started running and this and that and the other, and often I would fall. And I learned something from that. and I was able to get up and not fall so much anymore. So that was a good thing. I think failure is it's just part of a continuum, and I think a really unfortunate thing would be that if you encounter things that didn't go the way you wanted, you can call them failures also, then and you didn't learn anything from them. That to me would be even worse than not succeeding or meeting your expectations or somebody else's expectations.
Yeah. So yes, you're touching on something that I was hoping was going to be part of this conversation, and that's the notion of failing forward, which is something I talk to my students a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's okay if you fail as a transient state. It's not okay if you fail as a permanent state. So the point of failure is to explore an option and then come back off that option.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my thinking about failure actually comes from my time as a helicopter pilot. One of the things you have to do in helicopters, which takes a lot of effort, is you have to go test the airplanes after they've been repaired. And the pilots who do this, you're either loved or hated by the maintenance department. And you very quickly realize, if you care about it, that the best thing that you can do when you're testing a helicopter is to go out and do the thing that you suspect is going to fail first. So instead of following the card in the order it's written, you go right to the check that you think it's not going to pass, so you can bring it right back and you give more time to fix it. So being afraid to test is something that I think happens in all walks of life, particularly in technology. But being afraid to test pushes out your timeline, because the device either the system, whatever the system is, it either works or it doesn't work. And that exists whether you test it or not.
Yeah. So Harrison, if we, I haven't looked at explicitly lately, at least, in terms of what the experimental method is. But if we kind of looked at that, and what would be a failure in the context of an experiment?
Psychology. So experimental method from a statistician's point of view is: step one, make a hypothesis about the world. Step two, collect data, in this case, perform an experiment that directly informs that hypothesis. And then step three, see if the observation matches the hypothesized result. Where people get into trouble, or where this becomes difficult, is when you really, really want the answer to be A, and you allow yourself to exist in sort of a quantum superposition where it's both A and B, and you can exist that way as long as you don't ever test. So I think trying to stay a little bit on target here, but I think that is one of the real barriers to testing.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to throw that in is to make things more difficult in terms of talking about failure, and being informed by that. If you take on this mindset of experimentation, then I don't think that the word failure really comes into play unless you. I don't know. I'm not convinced that that's a useful word in that kind of a context.
So I think one of the use cases where this comes up is in people's careers or just in writing. Say I have a whole bunch of writing projects on, and you can write something and you can think it's good, and you can take it as far as you can take it by yourself. By the way, taking things as far as you can take them by yourself and then needing to find something else to move it forward, that's a constant theme in everything I do. So you take it as far as you can take it by yourself. and it's at the launching point. And you can believe, let's pick a periodical that somebody would that doesn't take submissions. Let's say The Economist magazine. They don't take submissions. But say you write this, you think, man, this is really good. This could run at The Economist. The instant you hit the send button, you are going to find out if it actually could or not. And there are places that you can be in your mindset. I'm not going to say people, because we're all that person from time to time. But there are places you can get to in your mindset where you would rather not hit send and just believe that it was good. You'd rather not find out. And that's the barrier. That's the impediment, I think, that's really hard to break through.
Yeah. So is there, not to take a tangent thing, but I would also say that is that really such a bad thing? If you knowingly don't send something out because you don't want to believe it knowingly.
I think what it does is, because I was thinking about that while you were talking, I think what it does is it artificially caps what you might be able to do, right? Because we don't live in echo chambers, although the explosion of very short attention video content has made it more possible for us to live in echo chambers than ever before. But we don't live in an echo chamber, and if you don't get feedback, then you aren't going to progress, or you're not going to progress at a rate that is going to be optimal.
Yeah. So anyway, so that I think that could be a possible another kind of discussion, if you can kind of even remember it. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. I can take the floor back if you want.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that we have to do to help change this cultural mindset is to be more open and honest with the people we work with when we fail. And that's hard because all of our incentives are pointed in the opposite direction.
And I just keep on thinking that for some reason I'm still I just still don't like the word, and I'm still not convinced that it's a useful thing. But that doesn't. So the experiment.
Could you nominate alternative?
So here's yeah. So the alternative is that fully knowing that that is something that is in people's psyche and people think that way, acknowledging that, and running an experiment where you just never use that word, and that doesn't mean that you and just run, kind of move towards this experimental thinking, maybe even. Like come up with an hypothesis, gather the information, this, that, the other, and make decisions, and this and that, the other, all that kind of stuff. But don't use this word. It's almost, to me, it's like not to go on a tangent, but I can't help it and say that depending on which religious background you come from, that you might be more prone to belittling yourself and taking on this maybe fictitious burden, and this and that, the other, and so forth and so forth, and therefore this failure, I failed, psychological kind of burden that you're going to put on your back, maybe you might be more prone to that. So I'm just going to say that, and this is, I don't need to be right about this. I'm just throwing that out. I'm just putting it on the table as well, and for a reason. And and the thing that I would love to be able to run is this experiment where we don't explicitly use the word failure, and see how that runs, because you can be assured that things are still going to not work out as people expected. We just won't be calling it as such. So, but we will be aware of it, and we move forward with that. Let's see if we can get a different kind of we can obtain a different level of maturity and bring bring people up a bit, and accomplish more of what really matters, and focus on things that really matter along the way.
So I'm going to propose an alternate construct.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come at the beginning; it comes at the end. And I'm just going to pick something that I've been frustrated at. Okay, I've been working with this little board for a couple days.
Yeah.
And I'll give you two statements. I don't know how to get it to boot into kiosk mode.
Okay.
That's statement one.
Yeah.
Statement two, I don't know how to get it to boot into kiosk mode yet.
Mm-hmm.
So appending the time conditional on the end changes the entire message. Because if you say, I don't know how to do something, you're saying, I just don't know, and that's the end.
Yes.
When you append the word yet, or an alternate would be, yeah, but I've only been on the job for 2 days, or, oh yeah, but it's only Thursday. That sort of makes the strong implication that you will be successful. The fact that you haven't achieved success yet is just a statement that you just need to put more time into it, or you just need to wait and be patient with yourself mostly. So I think that appending something that presumes success on the back end really changes the whole timbre of the conversation.
I couldn't agree more. That is the mindset. That is the mindset that I prescribe to. It's like, okay, just because I don't know how to do it now, and you've heard me use this kind of language before, is just because, well, I'll say that, this is what I know right now. In the next moment, I might think something different based upon new information coming in, this and that and the other. But it's I give myself complete freedom, and not be so tied into these. I'm vested, but not vested at the same time. I don't know if that even makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I think this comes up to something that we talked about the other day. You should measure your limitations. You should know your limitations.
Yeah.
You shouldn't believe in them, or you shouldn't believe in them very much. You definitely shouldn't pray to them, and you definitely should not make sacrifices to them.
Yes, yes, I agree. And so yes, absolutely. So I think that I don't know how to do this versus I don't know how to do this yet. Well put. No. And I think it's like having, I'm another word that's been stigmatized is the word faith.
Okay.
So faith to me, I'm not talking about religion. It's there in religion. But I'm not, by the way, I'm not a religious person, but I am, whatever. I respect all religious faiths and so forth and so forth. I respect all of that. But the faith to me, it doesn't have to be based upon some ideology or dogma or this, that, the other. Faith is something that can be, it's got its own merits. And so having faith, an example of faith is how you expressed it. I don't know how to do this yet. The yet part requires something more than what you know right now.
Yes. And, that word faith is really powerful. Sort of the strongest expressions of faith in my own life are the sense that my life has a meaning and a purpose, and that meaning and purpose is probably not going to be evaluated based on a bank account or a zip code. Mm-hmm. Those are nice things to have, but that's probably not the purpose of the purpose with a capital P of my life. but I think that it's easier when you have a sense of purpose to not be so mired in the eaches of your everyday life. And one of the exercises, and this is probably going to get us into our next discussion because it's way too much for us to unpack here, but one of the exercises I've been doing over the past couple of years is to pause and think of what would I think of my life if I was observing it from God's perspective.
Mhm.
And that can be uppercase G or lowercase g, depending on the day. But if you were that far removed, looking down at the contours, it would probably make sense. So the fact that it doesn't make sense to me all the time, every day, doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense. It just means that I haven't figured it out yet.
You got it. There you go. You haven't figured it out yet. Well put. And I
Yeah.
think that distinction you made between I don't know how it works or I haven't figured it out and I haven't figured it out yet is a super powerful set of words. And I think that's a set of words that should be perpetuated very, very actively.
I think I am being mindful of the clock, and we're trying to keep these at about the right time. So I'm gonna sort of say one other thing, and then we can move towards summation. The antithesis of the growth mindset and saying I haven't figured it out yet. The opposite of that is when people look at someone who has a skill, and particularly in mathematics for some strange reason, and says, "Oh, well, you're just good at X." There are very, very few people who are just good at something with no effort and no training. I mean, now there are definitely people who get way more miles to the gallon out of their training based on their background and their natural proclivities. But I respond very, very negatively to people saying, "Oh, well, you're just good at that," because it's dismissive and it denies the possibility of growth, and it denies the idea that the individual who is speaking, it sort of accepts failure in a non-transient way. Just to say, well, I'm not good at that, so I don't have to try or care.
Yeah. And just the way I take that is that it's a comment. And that's where that person is right now.
Yeah.
They may always be there for their entire life, but maybe not. So
hopefully not.
Yes.
Hopefully not. Okay. Well, I think we've had a good discussion around this and have a lot of low-hanging fruit for future episodes. I feel like I've summed up. If you had any last comments, otherwise I'll close us out.
Yeah, so I think like a lot of our conversations, at least from my perspective, I think context is critical for whatever we talk about, and we need to, if something is difficult to speak about, such as failure, then we need to. The first question that at least comes to my mind is why is it difficult, and how can we move forward in this understanding that. So I think that so there hopefully. If anybody decides to listen to our conversation at any point, then maybe one of the things that comes out of it is something bigger than the topic was spoken about, which is that there are questions before you start to answer the questions, and context is a critical bit of if something is potentially a part of something, that really implies that there's more to it. So ask yourself, what is it? What is this other stuff? And then you'll be on better footing as you move forward in answering the question, what is failure? Is it even actually a useful term? Is it at what level is it useful? Where is it useful? Where is it not useful? That kind of thing. Those are, I think, all very, very important insights to be gleaned out of anything, any word. Pick another word, even for that matter. So I'm going to stop there.
Okay. Well, thank you. And until next time, I've been Harrison.
Farhan,
Okay. Have a great day wherever you are.
thank you so much, Harrison. Thank you, everyone.